Okay, so what I'm gonna do in this video is break down the history to how drug testing came into being. Then I'm going to expound on how drug testing is used to racially profile and discriminate against black employees. Okay, so here we go. Now, prior to the 1980s, prior to the 1980s, you did not have to take a drug test in order to get a job. In most cases, you did not have to take a drug test to get a job prior to the 1980s. Now, drug testing in America started by the 1970s. Okay, drug testing in America started in the 1970s. Okay, now in the 1970s, there were only three different industries that required a drug test in order to be employed. Those industries that required a drug test was transportation. So if you work as a pilot, airplanes, helicopters, uh, you know, boats, um, truck driving. If you work anywhere in transportation, you have to take a drug test in order to get a job. In sports, if you play professional ball, doesn't matter the sport. If you play professionally, or if you were an Olympic athlete, right? If you were in the Olympics, you had to take a drug test in order to participate. If you were in the military, okay, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, National Guard, you had to take a drug test to be part of the armed forces. Okay, so drug testing in America started in the 1970s. Outside of those three industries, military, sports, and transportation, you did not need a job in order to gain employment. Okay, now another thing I want to make clear is that in the 1970s, drug testing was not used for racial discrimination. There was no political agenda behind drug testing in the 1970s. Okay, the political use of drug testing, the political agenda behind drug testing, as far as discriminating against black employees, didn't start until the 1980s. Okay, so I'm gonna move over to the 1980s and explain the systematic racism of workplace drug testing. Now, in 1984, 1984, the federal government had presented a document to multiple corporations in various different industries. Okay, in 1984, the federal government produced a document called Research Triangle. Okay, the name of the document was called Research Triangle. Okay, the federal government released this document to multiple corporations in different industries. Okay, now in this document, Research Triangle, the federal government claimed that corporations were losing over $100 billion a year because of accidents in the workplace. Okay, and according to the federal government, within their document, all of the accidents that were happening in the workplace were a result of drugs. Okay, so I'm going to reiterate this. So in 1984, the federal government produced a document, okay, a federal document called Research Triangle. Okay, in this federal document, the federal government told corporations, okay, this document was for corporations, CEOs, employers, okay, and the federal government was telling corporations that they were losing over $100 billion a year. They were losing revenue because of accidents in the workplace. Okay, and the federal government told corporations that the result of all these accidents was because of drug use. Okay, employees, coming to work high off different drugs, and the drugs that the document was referring to was powdered cocaine, marijuana, crack cocaine, and heroin. Okay, now what I want you guys to understand is there were the document was truthful in some ways, but in other ways the document was a lie. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is distinguish the truth from the lie. Okay, now the truth is companies do lose billions of dollars a year because of accidents on the job. Corporations lose billions of dollars a year. Okay, corporations lose a lot of revenue every year, and accidents is the reason why companies lose billions of dollars a year. Employees making mistakes, employees making errors in the workplace, and it's costing corporations billions of dollars. That part is the truth. Okay, so for instance, in the year 1984, all right, companies collectively lost over $120 billion in revenue, and all their loss of revenue was because of accidents that were occurring on the job. Okay, now I'm going to explain the lie, where the lie came in. Okay, now what the federal government lied about was that drugs were the reason why accidents were happening in the workplace. Drugs is not the real reason why accidents happen in the workplace. That part was a lie, and I'm going to explain why the federal government lied about that a little later. Okay, first I'm going to share with you guys the real reason why accidents happen, and it's not because of drugs. Okay, now, as I said, the federal government lied about drugs being the reason why accidents occur in the workplace. Okay, so truthfully, there's three reasons why accidents happen in the workplace. Okay, those three reasons are fatigue, employees coming, employees coming to work tired and exhausted. That's one of the real reasons why accidents happen in the workplace. Second reason why accidents happen in the workplace is because of stress. Employees coming to work distressed and dramatized about whatever is going on in their lives. So stress is another reason why accidents happen, in the workplace. And the third reason why accidents happen in the workplace is because of alcohol. Okay, employees coming to work drunk and intoxicated. Okay, now alcohol is actually the number one reason why accidents happen in the workplace, not drugs. It's it's more, alcohol is more to blame than drugs. So for instance, in 1984, 60% of all accidents that occurred in the workplace was a result of alcohol intoxication. Okay, so let me repeat that. In the year 1984, right, 60% of all accidents that occurred in the workplace were a result of alcohol intoxication. Okay, not only that, but in 1984 and today, the leading cause of death in the workplace is because of alcohol intoxication. Okay, so the number one reason why employees get killed on the job is because of alcohol intoxication. Accidents that happen, accidents that transpire because of alcoholism. Okay, so what I want to do right now is I want to explain to you guys, okay, why the federal government lied and said drugs was the reason why accidents happen in the workplace. The reason why the federal government lied and said drugs is a result of accidents in the workplace is because the federal government was trying to convince corporations to adopt drug tests. Okay, so you guys have to understand that drug test is it's a government, drug test is government. Drug testing is a government tool. Okay, the government wanted corporations to apply drug tests against employees, in particular black employees. Okay, so we have to remember that the Research Triangle document, the federal document that the federal government released to corporations throughout America, came out in 1984. The 1980s, okay, was the decade that the media was stereotyping black people as drug dealers and as drug abusers. Okay, this is why racial profiling came from the 1980s. Systematic racial profiling started in the 1980s. The 1980s was the beginning of systematic racial profiling of black people. Okay, and that's because of the whole, crack epidemic, whole war on drugs. All that was the 1980s, and the whole purpose of the whole war on drugs in the 1980s, was to stereotype black people as drug dealers and drug abusers. Okay, so that's why when you look at the news, if you look at the news clippings back in the 1980s, when you look at different news coverage back in the 1980s, it was all about drugs, right? The mainstream media talked about drugs, like drugs was the headline majority of the whole 1980s decade. And as the media was talking about drugs, they were also showing images of black people. That's how the stereotype against black people, that's how it unfolded. Okay, as drugs was being talked about, whether we talking about marijuana, whether we talking about crack cocaine, as the media was talking about drugs, they were also showing images of black people. Although black people were not the only people using drugs, the media strategically, exaggerated on the fact that black people were using drugs. Like, black people were not the only people using drugs, but the media had blown everything out of proportion. They were trying to the media was just displaying black people more than they should have. Okay, and they were doing that to stereotype black people. Okay, so by the federal government telling corporations that drugs was the problem, that drug use was the problem, the federal government was indirectly telling corporations that black people were the problem. Okay, you guys have to understand this. Okay, I'm breaking down political science for y'all. I've been studying political science for over 11 years and counting. All right, so I understand how this media shit works. I understand how government works. I understand how systematic racism works. Okay, so by the federal government telling corporations that drugs was the problem, that was a codified way of telling corporations that black people were the problem. And if you want, the federal government was telling corporations that if they want to solve their problem, their loss of revenue problem, then you have to start drug testing black people. You have to start drug testing your black employees and your black job applicants. Okay. And that's, and so like I said, the 1980s was the beginning of the racial profiling of black people. This is why, starting in the 1980s, black people started being black people were being profiled at airports, at on the streets, as pedestrians. Black people would always be pulled over. Black people would always be stopped on the streets as pedestrians. To stop and frisk. Black motorists would be pulled over on the streets. And that's the whole stop and search. In a workplace, different jobs started to apply drug tests. All that stuff, all this racial profiling that black people encountered started in the 1980s, and it was all because of the racial stereotyping that black people were drug dealers and drug abusers. Okay. Now, 1986 is a very important part of drug testing history, because 1986 is the year that the federal government passed Executive Order number 12564. Okay. Now, Executive Order number 12564 is what legally allowed companies to drug test their employees. And in this case, black employees. Okay? So, before the year 1986, you did not need to you didn't have to take a drug test in order to get a job. Okay? 1986 is the first year that companies were legally, allowed to drug test their employees. And 1986, because of this executive order number 12564, black employees were now subjected to discrimination in the form of workplace drug testing. So I gave you guys the history to how drug tests came about. Okay, so now I'm going to explain, how drug tests are actually used to discriminate against black employees. All right. So one way that drug tests are used to racially profile and discriminate against black employees, is through random drug testing. Black employees are given random drug tests 2 times more than white employees. So again, because of the stereotype that black people are drug users, because of the stereotype that black people are more likely to use drugs, corporations, firms, white employers give black employees random drug tests 2 times more than their white employees. So yeah, if you are black and you have a job, doesn't matter where you work, doesn't matter the industry, doesn't matter the corporation, doesn't matter the company. If you are black and you are an employee, you are 2 times more likely to be given a random drug test than any of your white coworkers. Second way that drug tests are used to discriminate and profile black employees is through accidents. When an accident transpires on the job, and that accident is caused by a black employee, that black employee is given a drug test 2 times more than white employees. So in other words, when a white employee makes a mistake on the job, And, you know, because of an accident, right? When a white employee causes an accident on the job, you know, he or she breaks something, spills something, somebody gets hurt, that white employee is least likely or less likely to be given a drug test. Because, you know, in general, drug tests are usually given when an accident occurs on the job. But the drug tests are given out selectively based off of race. Okay? And because of the stereotype that black people use drugs more than everybody else, because of the stereotype that black people are more likely to use drugs than everybody else, more, you know, white employers, white managers, supervisors, they're more likely to be giving a drug test to black employees who cause accidents compared to white employees who cause accidents. Okay? So if you are a black employee, just be aware that if you cause an accident, if you make a mistake and something breaks, something spills, somebody gets hurt, you are more likely to be targeted with a drug test than any of your white employees or co-workers. Now, the third way that drug tests are used to discriminate against black employees is positive drug test results. Positive drug test results. So, systematically, right, black employees are fired, or should I say 2 times more black employees are fired after failing a drug test than white employees. 2 times more black employees are fired from work after failing a drug test compared to white employees. So if you are black and you fail a drug test, you are more likely to be fired than a white employee who fails their drug test. So in other words, right, this is how white privilege works. This is how white privilege works in America. You can be white. You can be a white employee, fail a drug test, and still keep your job. That happens more often than black employees who fail their drug tests. Okay, most black employees who fail their drug tests are released from work. They're fired from the job. Okay, so this is just another example of how drug tests are used to discriminate against black employees. Okay, now the truth is, just because, now here's the thing, right? Despite the fact that black employees, black people, are given drug tests 2 times more than white employees, realistically speaking, white people and black people use drugs at pretty much the same rate. Drug use is similar between white and black people. All right, the rate of drug consumption is similar between white and black people. And in some cases, white people actually use drugs more than black people. Like, there's certain drugs that white people use more than black people. So to break this down, right, in general, just about every drug that exists is used pretty much at the same rate between white and black people. So like marijuana, people who's where marijuana use is pretty much the same between white and black people. You know, the use of powdered cocaine, white and black people roughly use cocaine at the same rate, right? Heroin, LSD, shrooms, all these drugs are used at the same rate between white and black people. Okay, Black people don't use drugs any more than white people. White people don't use drugs any more than black people, generally speaking. However, though, there are particular drugs that white people do use more than black people, which would be meth. So for instance, 2 times more white people use meth than black people. 2 times more white people smoke meth than black people. And prescription drugs. The psychiatric drugs. Psychiatric drugs, prescription drugs are used more by white people than black people. And when I say used, I'm talking about addicted. There are way more white people, twice as much white people who are addicted to prescription drugs than white people. Opioids, antidepressants, sedatives, different prescription drugs are used more by white people addictively than black people. And still, black people are given drug tests at a higher rate than white people in employment. Okay? So, the bottom line to the message of this video, okay, is that drug testing is not about drugs. Drug testing is not about drugs. It has nothing to do with drugs. It's not about a drug-free environment. It has nothing to do with that. Drug tests from the beginning has always been about racial discrimination. America itself is about racial discrimination. Everything about America is racist. Okay, nothing is authentic. Nothing is genuine. Okay, nothing is about right or wrong. Nothing is about honesty. Okay, everything in America is political. Everything in America is racist. Okay, when I say everything in America is political, I'm talking about racism. Okay, everything in America is intentional. It's intentional, intentionally racist. Okay, so this is what I want black people to understand. And this is why that, it's crucial that in the black community, okay, we develop our own companies and our own firms so we can hire our own people, because at the end of the day, drug tests is about unemploying black people. The government was using drug tests to give corporations an outlet to relieve themselves of black employees. Indirectly, drug tests are used so companies can relieve themselves of black employees. Okay? So, again, black people, the black community has to be responsible for the employment of other black people. Okay? That way, black people can, we can avoid and, bypass all these different racial tactics used against us. All right. So I hope you guys appreciate the video. Hope you guys, appreciate the information. I'm Cali Red, Cali with a K, Red with a double D. I'm recording this video in the Inland Empire. The Inland Empire is located in Southern California. The Inland Empire is made up of 2 neighboring counties, Riverside County and San Bernardino County. All right. Until the next video, black people, I love you. Be safe, stay blessed. Black power.